I don't like any of that being put on kids. Kids are trying to learn shapes, colors, textures, trying to think, make critical decisions. They need to know how to eat, have good nutrition, survive this planet. Those are the main key things that
Just
they
need to be kids.
Yeah, well, and just saying kids, they need to be taught things that are more practical to the survival of this planet and how they treat each other more so than their sexual liberation, whatever crap that you had, you want to push onto kids. Your trauma is an adult trauma. You go see a therapist, or you feel like you need to see a therapist. Yeah. You know, another suggestion is go to the gym. Build a strong body will help you build a strong mind. But you have to know your biological imperative as men and women, as adults, and also the effect of that abuse of power can have on kids. And so those two things are separate in itself. You don't push adult activity on kids. Why do you think there's changing rooms? Because adults are supposed to get changed elsewhere in separate spaces. They're not supposed to get changed in front of kids. There's an etiquette there. Yeah. There's an etiquette that you're supposed to have dealing with kids. And now they're trying to like dilute the etiquette that you give kids while you don't present a rated R film to a kid, a film that's rated R,
MA-15,
MA-15, MA-18 to a kid. They have those regulations in place because it has an effect on kids' mental health and their psychology.
Yeah.
You know, right now they're saying they care about your mental health, but they're saying they care about your mental health because they want you to change your identity and just be this cluster, and all the things that will happen out of you changing your identity or your gender. If you change your identity, is that you just become now a consistent customer of the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. You're a guaranteed customer for the rest of your life as a consumer to not just only plastic surgery, but all kinds of surgery, hormones. And we all know from the COVID, you know, that the pharmaceutical company likes money. And they don't have many ethics around it. You guys might have saw that Pfizer video that got leaked from Project Veritas that they released about the Pfizer employee that was explaining they wanted to mutate the C-19 virus in order to be able to produce more and more vaccines.
Pfizer ultimately is thinking about mutating COVID?
Well, that is not what we say to the public. No. Don't tell anyone this building. You probably shouldn't tell anyone. You probably shouldn't tell anyone. Okay? We're exploring, like, now, you know how the virus keeps mutating?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're exploring is, like, why don't we just mutate it ourselves so we could preemptively develop new vaccines, right? So we have to do that. If we're going to do that, though, there's a risk of, like, as you could imagine, no one wants to be having a pharma company mutating viruses. You have to be, like, very controlled to make sure that this virus that you mutate doesn't create something that, like, you know, goes everywhere.
Something crazy.
Is the way that the virus started and moving on.
Have you tried the lasagna? It's my favorite. Did you catch a game last night? Is it still hot out there? Have you decided what dessert you're gonna have?
In this real life, I'm literally a liar.
All right.
I was trying to impress a person on a date.
What grade are you in at school? Do you like hot fudge sundaes?
So, and it comes to my country. My country puts money over integrity. There's no ethics there. You know, my country is essentially, my home country is a money-making machine. It's just there to make money. It doesn't really care about who it eats. It will eat you. It will eat your grandma. It will eat everybody. Everybody has a dollar sign on them.
Well, that's what the social security number thing is.
Yeah,
yeah. It's like everyone has one, right, in the States, and that leads back to your 401 or your accounts or your debts.
Yeah, with tax file numbers or IRD numbers. You know, these are all things that say that you're worth this much to the country at the given moment. So you have to understand that you are just a number in a system that's already in place, and don't get taken advantage of a system. So climate change is one thing that we were going to mention just quickly. So with climate change, the climate has always changed. There's nothing much you can do about that. That's human arrogance that we think we can fix the planet and the planet needs our help. I don't think the earthquake in Christchurch felt like they needed our help. I think the earth just ate a piece of the ground when it decided to eat a piece of the ground, and you have no control over that.
Tectonic plates have been around since God knows.
Yeah, they've been around.
They didn't just start now.
No, they didn't start now. They've been around since the beginning of civilization. The countries that are leaking forms of methane into the earth from pollution, These are third world countries that are trying to catch up to first world countries. And you think they care to be more poor than you to catch up, to just stop having the methane leak into the ocean or whatever the case where it may be? No, because you're presenting a lifestyle that they want to feel okay too. They want to feel included and a part of this earth.
Scientists are telling us now is that the threat of an ice age is not as remote as they once thought.
At weather stations in the far north, temperatures have been dropping for 30 years. Seacoasts long free of summer ice are now blocked year-round. According to some climatologists, within a lifetime, we might be living in the next ice age.
Now, that didn't happen.
No.
Oops. But some of the same experts who predicted global cooling started talking about global warming. But then again, those predictions didn't materialize. So today it's just called climate change. Right. It's just climate change.
Yeah. For example, in 2008, Dr. Tim Flannery from the Australian government's climate change unit said, just imagine yourself in a world 5 years from now, so that would be 2013.
2013.
Yeah, when there's no more ice over the Arctic.
Oh.
In that same year, Al Gore made a similar prediction. That was the common view of the mainstream climate scientists.
See, I'm not one of these people who's worried about everything. You got people like this around you. Country's full of them now. People walking around all day long, every minute of the day, worried about everything. Worried about the air, worried about the water, worried about the soil. Worried about insecticides, pesticides, food additives, carcinogens. Worried about radon gas, worried about asbestos. Worried about saving endangered species. Let me tell you about endangered species, all right? Saving endangered species is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature. It's arrogant meddling. It's what got us in trouble in the first place. Doesn't anybody understand that? Interfering with nature. Over 90%, way over 90% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet, are gone. They're extinct. We didn't kill them all. They just disappeared. That's what nature does. They disappear these days at the rate of 25 a day. And I mean regardless of our behavior. Irrespective of how we act on this planet, 25 species that were here today will be gone tomorrow. Let them go gracefully. Leave nature alone. Haven't we done enough? We're so self-important. So self-important. Everybody's going to save something now. Save the trees, save the bees, save the whales, save those snails. And the greatest arrogance of all, save the planet. What? Are these fucking people kidding me? Save the planet? We don't even know how to take care of ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to care for one another. We're gonna save the fucking planet? I'm getting tired of that shit. Tired of that shit. Tired. I'm tired of fucking Earth Day. I'm tired of these self-righteous environmentalists, these white bourgeois liberals who think the only thing wrong with this country is there aren't enough bicycle paths. People trying to make the world safe for their Volvos. Besides, environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are fucked. Difference. The planet is fine. Compared to the people, the planet is doing great. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Did you ever think about the arithmetic? Planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here, what, 100,000? Maybe 200,000? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat? That somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just a-floating around the sun? The planet has been through a lot worse than us. Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drift, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference? The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We're going away. Pack your shit, folks. We're going away. And we won't leave much of a trace either. Thank God for that. Maybe a little styrofoam. Maybe. Little styrofoam. Planet will be here and we'll be long gone. Just another failed mutation. Just another closed-end biological mistake. An evolutionary cul-de-sac. The planet will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. A surface nuisance. You want to know how the planet's doing? Ask those people at Pompeii who are frozen into position from volcanic ash how the planet's doing. Want to know if the planet's all right? Ask those people in Mexico City or Armenia or 100 other places buried under thousands of tons of earthquake rubble if they feel like a threat to the planet this week. How about those people in Kilauea, Hawaii who build their homes right next to an active volcano and then wonder why they have lava in the living room? The planet will be here for a long, long, long time after we're gone, and it will heal itself, it will cleanse itself, because that's what it does. It's a self-correcting system. The air and the water will recover, the earth will be renewed, and if it's true that plastic is not degradable, well, the planet will simply incorporate plastic into a new paradigm, the earth plus plastic. The earth doesn't share our prejudice towards plastic. Plastic came out of the earth. The earth probably sees plastic as just another one of its children. Could be the only reason the earth allowed us to be spawned from it in the first place. It wanted plastic for itself. Didn't know how to make it. Needed us. Could be the answer to our age-old philosophical question, why are we here? Plastic. Assholes. So, the plastic is here, our job is done, we can be phased out now, and I think that's really started already, don't you? I mean, to be fair, the planet probably sees us as a mild threat, something to be dealt with, and I'm sure the planet will defend itself in the manner of a large organism, like a beehive or an ant colony can muster a defense. I'm sure the planet will think of something. What would you do if you were the planet trying to defend against this pesky, troublesome species? Let's see, what might, viruses. Viruses might be good. They seem vulnerable to viruses. And viruses are tricky, always mutating and forming new strains whenever a vaccine is developed. Perhaps this first virus could be one that compromises the immune system of these creatures. Perhaps a human immunodeficiency virus, making them vulnerable to all sorts of other diseases and infections that might come along. And maybe it could be spread sexually, making them a little reluctant to engage in the act of reproduction. Well, that's a poetic note. And it's a start. And I can dream, can't I? See, I don't worry about the little things. Bees, trees, whales, snails. I think we're part of a greater wisdom than we will ever understand. A higher order. Call it what you want. Know what I call it? The big electron. The big electron. Whoa. 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 It doesn't punish. It doesn't judge at all. It just is. And so are we, for a little while. Thanks for being here with me for a little while tonight.
You know, so that's something else to bear in mind. And also as far as like producing something more sustainable when it comes to what they term ESG, economic, social governance. As if they wanted to make some more sustainable, like I would say, energy source, they would use nuclear, because nuclear is non-polluting. It doesn't output more CO2 emissions. Nuclear is perfectly fine, but they want to avoid nuclear because it's a solution that fixes all. Mm-hmm. You know, anytime the world has a solution that fixes all, they kind of shun that, and they try to even get rid of the person who might have invented it.
Well, people have to remember that all these things create money. So when you come up with a drug that cures 10 different things, you have to ask yourself, okay, how's that going to be? Yeah. How's that going to screw over said companies?
There's a hydrogen-powered battery that a New Zealander had made in the 80s, and then the technology just disappeared. No one knows what happened to the guy either. There's been a number of those situations that happened.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me. You're gonna probably cost these people billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars. If Kelvin creates a bunch of cures today, keyword is cure, it doesn't come back, how are they going to keep making money? So is it worth getting rid of one guy?
It's so sad that people don't comprehend.
Billions of dollars.
That people will obviously, if they're running a business and you take away from their profit,
or you screw their business over.
Yeah, you're cutting into their profit. That they don't have any ethics about that. You know,
people kill for $10,000. I try to explain this to people. If people are willing to do that, what do you think people are willing to do if they found out that you're going to cost them billions of dollars
because you found a solution to
the issue or the world's issues?
We would hope the planet to be that way, and
that would be nice.
That would be a great thing. But there's people that are actively invested because they already control the resources. They're already in positions of power, and they don't want to lose that power.
We all know the term carbon footprint, but did you ever consider who created it? You probably believe it was created by a well-meaning environmental group, some organization that really cares about our planet. Well, nope, it was created by these guys, British Petroleum, otherwise known as BP, the same BP that's the 5th largest producer of oil on the planet, and the company responsible for this, the second most devastating oil spill in history. BP created the term in 2004 as part of a massive global advertising campaign. It was a masterclass in greenwashing, designed to take the focus off its polluting practices and to put the blame on the public for buying its dirty products, instead of BP for creating them. In short, they spent millions to blame you for carbon and to make you feel guilty for not being green, all so that they could wipe their conscience clean and continue to make billions a year in profits from oil.
So they will circumvent that new technology to keep themselves and their family, keyword family, in the same position that they always have been. You know, so there's world stakeholders that don't really care to fix our planet. They want to colonize us digitally if they can, through a census or through a virus and a digital passport. Anything to help keep us in line. So you got to be smart enough to understand you will get taken advantage of.
No, I agree. I think what he said was perfect, especially you just got to remember that people have been talking about climate change for ages, and simply put...
in the 1980s, they were talking about acid rain. The world was supposed to end because of acid rain. So when I was growing up in the 90s, we kept hearing that, like, oh my God, the world's just going to go really south, and it's going to be acid rain everywhere. Everyone's cars are going to be burning up from acid rain, and rust is going to be everywhere. So we were anticipating this really dark and gloomy, like, end of day scenario, and then it just never happened.
And that's always the case. But then I also
then the world was supposed to be flooded by, like, I think 2003, and then Al Gore, which is Bill Clinton's
2012.
Bill Clinton's former vice president. He created the whole climate change initiative and move with his documentary An Inconvenient Truth, and he was saying the world was going to end in 2012. It didn't happen. Greta Thunberg said the world was going to end in 2023, if I'm not, or 2022 or 2023,
2022 or 2023.
Yeah. She said on this date we're going to face mass extinction, and it didn't happen. It's fear mongering.
It's fear. It freaks people out.
Yeah, fear makes people behave irrationally, and she said it herself. She's an anarchist. Just like some people in certain political parties that are in New Zealand are anarchists, supporting, bashing of ladies.
And I think also what people need to think about is, if you care so much about this stuff, actually look at your life, every single thing in your life, and start taking away the things that ruin the planet. And you'll find that it's probably 80% of the things you own, from your car to your phone, to your TV, to your this, to your washing machine, to all these things. And obviously you're not going to throw away half your life because you're trying to save the world. And the next thing is, your politicians and people in power also don't care. They're going to summits in private jets. And private jets release some of the most...
highest emissions, into the atmosphere.
But then there's 26 private jets flying in a goddamn Switzerland.
Yeah.
And they're talking about climate change. And that's why I can't take it seriously, because you're trying to be like, we gotta save the planet. But I need to take.
But I need my private jet.
And I'm like, what? And people go, oh, but they need.
You've flown more places in your private jet all year than.
Yeah, that wasn't just the one trip they took.
Than the pollution of anyone's vehicle.
Oh yeah, you can see like trips that some of them have taken, and they've gone to a city 6 times, and the city's not even like a plane trip. You could technically drive there.
Yeah.
You could probably you could have taken a commercial airplane and sit with the rest of the plebs.
It's asinine arguments to keep the general public fighting. That's it. Because, like I said, if you fix the energy crisis, which is nuclear, if they decided to use nuclear, which supplies so much power for the next hundreds of years, there would be no need for an ESG. They would need an economic social governance. The energy crisis would fix the social issue and the governance issue, but they don't want to actively fix the energy crisis, so it keeps people fighting, so they keep the social aspect and the governance. Governance is meaning them needing to micromanage you guys at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If some of you guys were afraid about COVID, look how he injects the fear of cyber attack and other things in his method of marketing. So press play.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
I don't understand.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, sure.
This is not my show, okay? So I want to be respectful. Can you put up the Apple 1984 ad?
Identical. It's the same music.
Yes. It's like just
identical.
Literally.
It's the first thing I thought about.
Is that
It's
right?
the first thing I thought about.
It straight up is like you wouldn't.
That's the face. Don't play it. Just show the face. That looks like you can't use the audio.
This is the guy who is. Like, that's Klaus Schwab on the screen.
Yeah.
So tell me that is not the exact same person.
But think about that.
Yeah.
Germany. You think about Adolf. You think about 1984.
It's the message.
How is he convincing people like a Joe Biden to say, let me announce my candidacy campaign to be Build Back Better, which he's the Build Back Better guy. So why are people buying into this guy? Why does he have so much influence over people?
So the answer comes down to money, actually. So it comes down to money.
But he doesn't have money. He
doesn't have money. No. It's not even this man. I mean, I gotta tell you something. I was asked by the Wall Street Journal to review a book that he wrote, in like early 2020 or 2021, a couple years ago. And through reading that book, I get the sense that he's just a sincere individual who has had this passion for 50 years, and in his own heart is just one man who has his views. They're views that I deeply disagree with, but he happens to have exercised influence because everyone else with money, 360 degrees surrounding him, had a use for that. Okay? Larry Fink is on the board of the World Economic Forum of Davos. Klaus Schwab doesn't have money, or not in a seriously large scale way. Larry Fink controls $8 to $10 trillion under the purview of one man. That's probably the largest.
He was. Larry being who you're talking about BlackRock, Larry Fink.
Yeah. I mean that is probably the largest aggregation of capital under one man's authority.
No question.
In human history, more than the Dutch East India Company, okay? And he's on the board of the World Economic Forum of Davos. So what does this accomplish? It is a front. That is what this is. This is a front. And you know what? These things always come in 3-letter acronyms, right? ESG, DEI, SRI, socially responsible investing, CSR. My favorite 3-letter acronym is the CCP. You look at Klaus Schwab, he elevates the CCP. He talks about the Chinese model of dealing with COVID-19. Not in a way not to do it, but in the way to do it.
Right.
So here's the way this game works, okay? The BlackRocks of the world apply constraints to the West. Emissions caps, what kinds of energy you can and cannot use, what kinds of diversity you must have. They apply that to the West without applying those same constraints in places like China. I'll give you a very specific example, okay? They're pressuring companies like Exxon to adopt Scope 3 emissions caps. That causes companies like Exxon to drop oil projects. Now, a couple years ago, there's an oil project in the Sichuan province of China. Chevron drops it. You might wonder, hey, maybe this is part of the fight against global climate change. Maybe that project isn't proceeding. You'd be wrong. That same project is proceeding just under new ownership. Who's the new ownership? It is PetroChina. Now you take a look at who's one of the larger shareholders of PetroChina. It is none other than BlackRock, the same party who's pressuring firms like Exxon and Chevron.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing here is that take it from the left hand and give it to the right. That's last time I checked, we're supposed to be fighting global climate change.
I'm just saying a three-card Monty going on. Follow the money. It's
and
like
then the
one
World
way or
Economic
another.
Forum is this front that gives this, that sort of creates this veneer of legitimacy, when in fact, because it's a nonprofit global allegiance and organization conceived by this elderly Swiss gentleman, Klaus Schwab, when in fact it is just a vehicle for advancing an agenda that impedes the objectives of the West without laying a finger on China or the Chinese economy. And so the CCP is the most relevant three-letter acronym looking by disease. I'll give you another little mystery here. Why is it part of the global ESG agenda to be hostile towards nuclear energy? So the first paradox is, why do they shift production to China and they're okay with it? Oh, and by the way, for any climate activists listening to this, I mean, just to give you a fact to think about tonight when you go to bed, methane leakage, a unit of methane is 80 times worse for global warming than carbon dioxide, okay? People talk about carbon emissions. Well, if you want to actually have a database debate, you can't just talk about carbon. You have to talk about the difference between carbon dioxide, methane, and other forms of carbon. Turns out methane leakage is 80 times worse for global warming than carbon dioxide. Guess where methane leakage is worse? In places like Russia and China. So when you shift production from the U.S. to other parts of the world, it's not just that it's net neutral with woke washing. It's worse than that, because you're actually contributing to more methane leakage into the atmosphere than you were even in the U.S. You've done even more harm on your own terms. Even if you subscribe to this crazy religious zealotry, even if you subscribe to that, you have failed on your own terms. So that's the first mystery. Now, I'll give you a second mystery, and then you see the conclusion. The second mystery is, why are they hostile to nuclear energy? Because you would think if you were opposed to all this carbon emission stuff, you would be embracing the greatest form of carbon-free, large-scale, reliable energy production known to mankind, that is nuclear energy. And yet, ESG funds, like Vanguard's ESG fund, systematically, by rule, exclude nuclear energy. Now, scratch your head for a second and ask what's going on there. The answer is this whole agenda, the anti-nuclear disposition included, is really not about climate change at all. It is about making the West apologize for its sins of the past to achieve a paradigm of global equity. The problem with nuclear energy is not that it is not good enough. It is that it is too good at solving the supposed energy crisis or clean energy crisis, which means you lose the E, the environmental prong as ESG, as a Trojan horse for the S, the social agenda. And that's really what's going on here, is the whole climatism and the World Economic Forum. Each of these is just a front. It's a Trojan horse. It's a vehicle for advancing an equity-driven agenda that the citizenry of most democracies in the West, including the United States, would have never tolerated if you didn't disguise it in the religious veneer of COVIDism or climatism or whatever other secular religion ends up being the vehicle for advancing that. That is what's going on here.
So there's people, NGOs, that are tied to the UN, that are actively funding this discourse of people fighting with each other. And you find that out in military situations also, with like weapons manufacturers and people financing these or actively invested in weapons manufacturing companies, that these guys are actively invested in funding one side of the war. And then when one side's losing, they'll buy weapons for the other side. They'll supply the weapons. And it just creates this never-ending warring loophole. There's a reason why there's things in this world that don't make sense. Like, you would think, why are we still at war? Why are we still fighting all the time?
Well, this past Saturday, during Berkshire Hathaway's 2023 annual shareholder meeting, Berkshire Hathaway's Warren Buffett's holding company, Peter Flaherty, who is a shareholder and the chair of the National Legal and Policy Center, which is a conservative group that monitors and reports on abuse and corruption of political officials and other organizations. Well, he stood up to speak, and when he did, he linked Warren Buffett to Bill Gates and subsequently Jeffrey Epstein. Watch this.
Senators to present a proposal.
I am Peter Flaherty, Chairman of the National Legal and Policy Center. If we had an independent chair, the company would be less identified with Mr. Buffett's political activities. He's donated tens of billions to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. As Bill Gates explained when the company was still together, although the company bears our names, basically half our resources have come from Warren Buffett. If woke culture is the disease, then philanthropy is the virus. The Gates Foundation bankrolls the teaching of critical race theory around the country, including that math is inherently racist. The Gates Foundation offers a gender identity toolbox, which asserts that gender is a result of socially and culturally constructed ideas. This is a lie. Gender is not a cultural construct. It is a genetic and biological fact. You're not going to censor what I say, ma'am. I'm very sorry. And I'll appeal to the chair that I be allowed to continue. Sir?
You may continue, but you're under a 3-minute limitation.
Of course. We know how much Bill Gates cares about children. He met and traveled with Jeffrey Epstein many times after Epstein's convicted sex crimes. The Gates Foundation had a huge influence over the COVID response fiasco. The Gates Foundation may be the largest single donor to the dark money machine known as Arabella Associates. It funds causes like defunding the police, making American cities unlivable. Money goes also to groups conducting forensic.
Just lost the lottery.
His own
way.
father.
Hold on.
Yeah. The Nazis, when they would invade some of these areas, they would set up what they're called Jewish councils, and they would try to recruit local Jews from the population to carry out their bidding against other Jews. And Soros was recruited into that, and when he was asked about it in 60 Minutes, the host, Steve Croft, asked him about it.
Was it difficult? Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection. But it created no problem at all. No feeling of guilt. No.
Surprise, surprise, Soros' father wrote an autobiography. And in the autobiography, he talks about his son's upbringing and his son's participation with the Nazis, and said it was something he tried to dissuade George from doing and something that he seemed to enjoy doing. So his own father.
No way. Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to slow that down because I did not know this.
Greg Abbott, where he was explaining to me what George Soros does, and it's fucking terrifying. That he donates money to a very progressive, very leftist, whether it's a DA or whatever politician, and then funds someone who's even further left than them to go against them and just keeps moving it along. So he's playing like a global game, and that he enjoys doing it. It's like he wants these cities to fall apart. He wants crime to flourish. It's almost like he's an evil person in a Batman movie. And he's got to be deep into his 80s.
Oh, it's 92.
92. So you got to wonder, like, what keeps that guy fucking motivated?
My name's According, and if you enjoyed this, leave a like on it and subscribe or follow for more.
It's 2023 and there's still war.
It's set up that way. Yeah. It's set up that
like
way.
The same way it's like, why we still got this disease? It's been around for so long, and I'm just like, well, because they're not trying to cure that disease.
Yeah,
if you look at
they're not actively trying to fix the situation. Same with America. It's like there are racial issues and all kinds of atrocities that they haven't apologized for. They don't actively want to fix it because they get too much profit off people fighting it. It fills up their prison system. It fills up their debt. And it sounds inhumane and gross, but these are people going around the world trying to teach people about democracy, and all that they've done is overthrown people's governments, invaded their borders, crossed over their land, and now they want you to be upset about Ukraine.
A country that has put so many governments in Africa, that has led so many coups in Africa and other parts of the world, a country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world, the killers of Patrice Lumumba, those who toppled Kwame Nkrumah, those who killed Nasser, those who killed Muammar Gaddafi, today are coming to teach us about democracy. A country that has been built on brutal force, on enslavement of other human beings, on the humiliation of Africans, the exploitation of Africans, the plunder of Africa.
Like I said, NATO expanded to Russia's. Hey guys, if you want to watch more clips, click here.
And if you want to watch the full podcast, click right here.